When you spend 2 decades wearing a motorcycle club patch, serving in leadership, and half a century raised in the life, among some of the largest organizations on record, there are several life lessons to be learned. This is one of those lessons. There's an old saying that says if you can't be good, then be good at it. I always tried to be good at it. I always maintained situational awareness and tried to look 3 steps ahead of every situation. I did my best to instill in those men who were under my leadership the things that I had been taught by the men that went before me. But you know, sometimes it just comes down to damn luck. Because sometimes you just don't know what you don't know, and shit happens. This was one of those times. I find that communication solves a lot of problems, but lack thereof creates even bigger ones. Trust me, I know how difficult it is to communicate, especially when your leadership is oftentimes not located in the state that you're in. If the clubs were smart about it, they'd run a Pony Express and never discuss anything over the phone, no matter what. I can't tell you how many times things went sideways because leadership of another club didn't even talk to their own membership about conversations we had at the highest level. There's one specific crew in a specific state who's notorious for this kind of shit. I mean, you could literally sit down at a table, spend your whole damn afternoon working shit out, come to some sort of agreement, and shake hands when you end the meeting. And it may not even be 2 or 3 days if somewhere else in the state some of their crew jumps off over some dumb shit that we had worked out at that table. And 99% of the time come to find out they didn't even know about the conversation that we had with their leadership. In fact, it got so habitual that even to this day I almost think it was intentional. I stopped having meetings with them because I decided they were snakes, and you can't shake hands with a snake. Even after I hung my patch for the last time, I continued to see and hear about situations where that crew had been doing the same thing to other big diamond clubs as well. And when their leadership sought my advice or counsel, I would tell them, "You're doing your own men a disservice if you believe a word that comes out of their fucking mouth. That's why your guys keep getting jumped when they think everything's cool. You're setting your own guys up if you believe a word that comes out of that other crew's mouth." That's why we always conducted ourselves in what we called club mode if we were out in public. I had a very strict demand that if we were out in public, at an event or a bar, that you don't get all shit-faced and put yourself or others in jeopardy. I spent my entire life around some of the best damn leadership of motorcycle clubs you could ever imagine, and I guarantee if you've been in the club life for a while, you know some of those names. I even had a female friend who owned a biker bar in my local hometown say to me one time when we rolled in about 25 or 30 deep, she said, "Tabasco, you guys scare the shit out of people when you come into town and enter a bar." I asked her, "How's that?" "It's not like we come in and push people out of their seats. Hell, most of the time we come in and buy a round for the entire bar." She said, "No, that's not it. It's because when you guys enter a bar, you come in from every entrance, including through the kitchen, and usually there's at least 4 or 6 of your guys who only come in about 4 feet, and they put their backs to the wall next to the door and never move." I just laughed and said, "Honey, that's just maintaining situational awareness." So now I'll tie this all together into this episode's lessons learned, and how important communication, situational awareness, and sometimes luck can be. There was one time when we were courting a pretty good sized club to roll over under our umbrella and become a support club. And somewhere in that courting it came about that they would be hosting our entire state for our annual shakedown ride in the spring. Back then I was still in Ohio, so the annual state shakedown run was our first chance to get out after the spring thaw. Hell, one year we had 136 bikes packed up, running all over the center of the state. What a mess that was. But anyway, the shakedown party was always a good time. The old ladies were welcome, and it was always great to get out in the wind with your brothers. The ride had completed, and the party had thinned out by about 8 p.m. A lot of our chapters had a couple-hour ride home, and it does get chilly that time of year in the Midwest. Myself and my old lady, and the warlord who was my bodyguard, and his old lady, were talking to a few brothers in a small group. They were headed to a bar on the west side of town. Even though we had another 45 minutes past that bar to ride home, I said, "Yeah, we'll probably stop by." Well, after getting in that wind after dark in the early spring, cooler heads did prevail. And by cooler heads, I mean both our old ladies were freezing their asses off. And I have to say, it was pretty damn chilly. So while on the outer belt around the city, I signaled to my warlord riding to my side, "Let's roll on up north and head home." He nodded, we cracked the throttles, and away we went. It wasn't until the next day that I found out what had happened. I was called into the clubhouse to watch a videotape of a situation that happened at that bar on the west side last night. It was painful to watch. It was evident on the videotape that our brothers were just hanging out. A couple here, a few there, a couple brothers shooting pool. They paid no attention when a couple of vans and a pickup truck had pulled into the parking lot together. Nobody was paying attention to see the 12 guys get out of those vehicles and a few small groups pack up outside by each of the doors. They didn't see the 7 guys enter into the bar, 4 from the patio and 3 through the front door. And every one of our guys that was on camera that I saw didn't even know what hit them until it was too late. You see, 2 of our guys had neglected to mention that they had been in that bar just a week prior and had a situation. On that particular night, 2 of our guys had decided to step up and play Billy Badass because the whole chapter crew was at the bar. They ran some dude out of the bar because one of our guys wanted to hit on the bartender and it was her boyfriend or something like that. Well, it turns out he happened to be a member in an organization that doesn't fly colors. He happens to be in one of the biggest and oldest organizations with a very brutal reputation in American history. And you know what? Them 2 boys were there that night when the attack occurred, and they cowered in the corner with bar stools trying to defend themselves instead of defending their brothers. I'd like to think if we would have stopped there that night like I had planned, it wouldn't have went down like that. If nothing else than the fact that if you're paying attention and you notice something unusual and you stand and face it before it has a chance to organize, it oftentimes decides now's not a good time and goes away. But let me tell you this, someone got lucky that night. Either me and my bodyguard or the aggressors. Because I can goddamn guarantee you that a few of them would have left in a hearse. He and I didn't have to take some lives, and some of them didn't have to die. I guess I'll take that kind of luck sometimes, because that's just the type of occasion that requires a lot of pictures to be taken, and he and I would have taken every picture we could have. But what the hell do I know? I'm just Tabasco the biker. Keep it real.
In the club life you get one shot to prove that you're a man, one shot to be the best you can, one shot to show that you are real.